JP,
Yeah.
does your wife go to you and ask you to go get groceries when you don't want to? You're in
Yep.
the middle of playing a game or watching a movie or just chilling.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't it drive you nuts, bro?
Drives me bonkers.
But as our duty as men, we sometimes have to go and get them damn groceries.
Do we?
I don't know. I heard that there might be a new option,
Ooh.
Instacart.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you use Instacart and use our promo code, you can get a free, what is it, JP? Free delivery on your first order over $35. If you use the show link note that we have for Instacart, which is down below, click that, sign up for it, get your paid account going, and you can get your first free delivery over an order over $35. Basically, don't order just eggs and just ask somebody to come bring it to you. That's a jackass move, right?
Just get it all. One go.
Get it all and be done. Get all your milk, your eggs, everything at the comfort of your own home. Right now, it's cold. I don't want to put on all my winter gear to go outside and go get to the store and bring it all in. I have to put on a COVID mask and all that nonsense. Let's just pay somebody else to do it. Sit at home, continue that video game, continue that movie, chill and relax.
That'd be so much easier. I mean,
Yeah.
you got the power at your fingertips.
Yep.
Just,
It's 2021. Who does their own grocery shopping?
yeah.
What's wrong with you? Yeah. Call Instacart up. They'll get a local shopper. They'll connect you to somebody in your area that you can count on. And sometimes they'll even get it there within an hour, which is incredible.
It is.
It's like fast food.
That's
It's like
faster than I can do it.
that's like almost like getting a pizza,
Yeah.
but groceries.
Healthy.
Instacart.
Instacart.
Sign up.
Sign up.
Link below. Tell them Truth or Theory sent you. Folk Wolfpack. Welcome back to the show. It's episode number 70. Moving right along there, JP.
Yep, we are.
How are you doing today, buddy?
Killing it, bud.
Killing it?
Yep.
You got some good news you want to share?
I do. I just want to cheers to all the guys that are killing it in the stock market recently. It's kind of funny to see all the big boys out there that are upset that they're telling, people, hey, you need to invest your money in this and that. And then they do it. And then they're like, wait a minute. You're taking all the money now. So those of you who are killing it on the GameStop and AMC and all that good stuff, I got in it as well.
GameStop's doing well?
Oh, dude.
What? We're going to have to talk about this sometime because I don't know anything about it.
They shut them down because they're doing some shady stuff because they're
Really?
killing it on that.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, you're going to have to educate me on stock stuff because I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
You got any other good news?
No, not really. Other than that, same old.
All right. Well, I got 3 of them. Today I started my job, bumped up. It's going great. Great place to work. I'm not going to get into too much details with it for my own privacy, but yeah, it's a great place, great coworkers. I'm excited about it. We got home and my wife made gumbo. I'm from Louisiana, so if your wife surprises you with gumbo, homemade gumbo, then it's a good day. Okay. It's also my youngest's birthday. Shout out to her. Little Coco's 7 years old now, and she gifted us a little studio gift. We got a little baby Grogu, baby Yoda in here now too, on top of all the other nonsense that's in this studio. So I'm excited. We're doing an episode I've been wanting to get into. I researched different people that have dived into Bruce Lee's life and found this guy, and I haven't got a chance to read his book yet, but it looks very interesting, and I'm looking forward to diving into that book. But we're going to virtually and audio, we're going to dive into it today with our guest, Matthew Polly. He's got a great book out about Bruce Lee called Bruce Lee, A Life. Welcome to the podcast, Matthew.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. This is one subject we have not really covered at all.
Yeah, we've got into martial art fraud type stuff with Rob from McDojo.
Mm-hmm.
We've had Chuck Liddell's coach on, the pit master, John Hackelman. But
I know John.
You know John?
I mean, I met him.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, he's a great guy. So we've kind of steered away from MMA and martial arts stuff from this podcast because there's not a whole lot of conspiracy stuff with it. And I kind of did it on my other podcast, which is more aimed for that kind of stuff. But this is one that's got a lot of interesting ties to it. And Bruce Lee's life is an incredible life. And it really blows me away, too. I'm going to be 37 in a couple months. And he died at 32, which is so strange to me. I always grew up thinking he lived a decent life, but he died early. 32 is young, man.
This could be my last year on Earth.
Yeah, 32 is so young. It's like, to me, it's a kid still. You have so much life left to you. You don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just incredible that he did that much until at 32, and I'm excited to hear more about his life with you, Matthew. What got
Well,
you?
happy to talk about him.
Yeah, what got you into Bruce Lee, and tell us a little bit about your background, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I was one of those skinny, scrawny kids who was picked on the playground. And when I was like 12, someone shared a tape of Enter the Dragon. And I watched it, and I was like, I want to be that guy. I want to kick the butts of everybody who threatens me. So I became a Bruce Lee fan, started studying martial arts. When I went to college, I studied Kung Fu. So I went to the Shaolin Temple and studied Kung Fu with the monks in China, and then wrote a book about that experience, which kind of launched my career as a martial arts writer. And then one day someone said, you should do a biography of Bruce Lee. And I was like, why? There must be dozens of really good biographies. But it turned out there weren't any. And I sort of felt offended on his behalf. So I decided to write sort of an authoritative biography of Bruce Lee to honor sort of his legacy and what he meant to me.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
The whole Shaolin thing with the monks, man, that's like everybody who likes martial arts fantasy.
That's right. I did. Cool. I spent 2 years studying with the Shaolin monks.
Wow, that's so awesome. I could do a whole episode just about that, man. How long did it take you to get out there? Like what triggered that, and what made you pull the trigger on going?
I've been studying Chinese Kung Fu in college, and I was also a Chinese language major. Wow. And so I asked one of my professors, I said, I want to go to China and learn Kung Fu. And he said, do you want to learn the real Kung Fu? And I was like, yeah, of course. And he goes, are you afraid to suffer? I was like, no, lying. And he said, well, if you want to learn real Chinese Kung Fu and you aren't afraid to suffer, then you must go to the Shaolin Temple. And I, of course, had seen all the movies where Shaolin shows up, and in Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee's a Shaolin monk. So it felt like destiny calling. So I hopped on a plane and wandered around and finally found the Shaolin Temple.
Man, I have to write a book about you, man. That's pretty damn cool. That's a pretty awesome setup there, man. That's really cool. So, have you talked to anybody in the Lee family, Shannon, or anybody else? Do they approve your book?
So I did interview Shannon Lee, his widow, Linda Lee, talked to his sister, Phoebe Lee. So they all knew I was doing the book. I'm not sure they approved of it, but they were willing to grant me interviews, for which I was very grateful. Of course, I think like any family member, they're sensitive and they're worried about how someone they love will be portrayed. Right. And so I think there were things they liked in the book, and then there were things, of course, they probably would have preferred I hadn't told.
Right. That goes with anybody's life. Everybody's got their dark moments.
They do.
They're not proud of. I know.
That's right. If someone, I was thinking the whole time I was working on the book, if someone were doing this book about me, like what things I wouldn't want them to know. So, you try to be as honest as possible, but also be sensitive to the people who are still alive.
Right. I know Shannon Lee is pretty protective of her father. And I know when Quentin Tarantino came out with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the scene with him and Brad Pitt fighting didn't set well with them because of the way they portrayed Bruce Lee being kind of arrogant. Didn't set well with them. I thought that was interesting. So I was wondering how they would take your book. I haven't got a chance to read it yet, but I'm just assuming that there'd be stuff in there that would be like, no, we don't want that out there, or that's not really how that happened. But overall, they've been pretty good about it.
I haven't heard back from them, but they didn't come out and criticize me. So I think it's sort of that. They've been neutral. Yeah. So I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think if there was an issue, you would have heard about it.
That's right.
That's awesome. So what, as a guy who's studied Bruce Lee so much, what's your opinion on the movies that have been made about him? Do you think they're pretty accurate, or
So I actually was on Shannon's side for the Quentin Tarantino movie. I think it was a bit of a caricature. I mean, Bruce could be arrogant, but that portrayal was too harsh.
Yeah.
There was the 1993 movie called Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, which was, a bit of a fantasy, Hollywood fantasy. maybe too nice, actually. And so, you know, it's always a balance trying to get, you know, somebody's life told as accurately as possible. But, you know, in general, I think there's a lot of myths about Bruce Lee.
Yeah, the 93 film is probably the one I'm the most familiar with. That's when I grew up watching and thinking was so cool. The whole thing with his dreams and the nightmares about this like Shogun samurai thing coming after him like a demon, and it kind of carried on and was chasing Brandon Lee. Is that anything that happened in his life? I don't know.
Yeah, so that was one of the weird coincidences. They totally made that up. That was supposed to be some sort of Freudian image. And the filmmakers totally made that up as a literary device. But then Brandon died soon after that movie was released. And so that added to
year, basically, huh? 93, 94.
Yeah. Yep. And so that added to the kind of conspiracy theories that surrounded Bruce's death and then ended up surrounding Brandon's death, because that movie is so central to people's understanding of who Bruce Lee was as a person.
Right. Yeah, that's I fall right into that. So what, without giving away too much of your book content, what do you think happened basically with Bruce Lee? Do you think there is a conspiracy behind his death? Do you think it was some kind of weird health issue, or was the Chinese triad really, did they take him? I'll be plain and simple.
That's right. It was the ninjas. I think the ninjas got him. No, so what it's a little bit complicated, the story, but I assume I have a little time to tell you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
So basically what happened is 10 weeks before he died, on May 10th, 1973, he collapsed because he was in this dubbing room, kind of like the room you're in, doing voiceover. And they had turned off the air conditioning, but they were in Hong Kong in the summer, and it got so hot that he ended up collapsing. And his brain started to swell from the heat. And they rushed him to the hospital, and they basically gave him some medicine to make the brain swelling stop, and he barely survived. And then 10 weeks later, he was at the apartment with this actress by the name of Betty Ting Pei, and it was an extremely hot day. He complained of a headache. He went to lie down, and by the time she decided to try to wake him up for dinner, he was already dead. So what I think happened is that he died from heat stroke. The first time looks a clear example of heat stroke, and given all the circumstances and the likelihood that the same thing that made him collapse before is what killed him, I think that's the most coherent theory for his death. But we can never really know why Bruce Lee died. So all we can do is kind of put forward theories and argue for them. But I think heat stroke, for me at least, is the best explanation. And the reason why it turned into a grand kind of conspiracy is Betty Ting Pei was his mistress. And after he died, what she did when she couldn't wake him is she called his producer, and the producer called an ambulance, and they put his dead body into an ambulance and rushed it to a hospital, and then declared him dead once he got to the hospital. And then the producer released to the press that he had died at home with his wife. And then 3 days afterwards, the press found out they lied about where he died. And then they found out, of course, that he was with this young, attractive actress the last day of his life. And that turned into a huge kind of, you can imagine, 1973 in Hong Kong, a kind of sex scandal. And then people started to wonder, well, if they lied about this, what else did they lie about? And they tried to figure out, they didn't think about heat stroke. They couldn't figure out why he had died, because he was 32, he was in great shape. And then all the conspiracy theories started, that the Triads killed him, the producer killed him, his girlfriend killed him, some other producer killed him, the Japanese killed him, maybe there's a curse, and the dragon came down and killed him. Well, maybe it was the samurai warrior in the movie. So all these theories started to surround Bruce Lee's death and become kind of caught up with who he was and part of his image.
Wow, I had no idea about any of that. That's so crazy.
And I didn't think that heat stroke could actually kill you. I mean, I knew it would make you pretty sick, but I mean,
I've come close to the heat exhaustion stuff when I was welding. I remember I got so hot and heated with it that I was like feeling terrible. I picked up my welding shield and just started vomiting and hit the ground and almost blacked out. It was rough. Heat is definitely no joke when your body's maxed out. Your brain's basically cooking.
Yeah. So basically, heat stroke kills like 6 or 7 high school football players a year.
Yeah.
It's killed a couple NFL players. So young men, a lot of in the army, when they do marches in places that are really hot, they have a problem with heat stroke. So it's not like guns. It doesn't kill a lot of people, but it does kill kind of young, healthy men if they're in hot environments. Mm-hmm. So it's a plausible theory, but I have to emphasize it's just my theory. It could be totally, maybe the Triads did kill him, but I couldn't. I didn't find any evidence for that.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, there's always some scandals in Hollywood, man. Especially in the 70s, it seemed like there was a lot of stuff they were trying to do behind the scenes, but it was sloppily covered, and that's what caused a lot of these extra theories that probably didn't need to be, because it was just simple scandals that are going on, trying to be covered.
Yeah, that's and I think that was the case here, which was they were trying to cover up an affair to protect his image with the public and also the feelings of his wife. Wow. And it was the 70s. They were all actors. They were all doing this. This wasn't anything uncommon. But because they tried to cover that up and they got caught, then people get suspicious.
They did autopsy on him and all that. No drugs in the system. None of that jazz.
So they found he liked to chew hash. So he had a little bit of hash in his system, marijuana basically.
Right.
And he had taken an aspirin for the headache that he was feeling, and that's all they found in his stomach. And you can't die from cannabis. Like you can't OD from it. There's no amounts you can take. Well, you guys are in Colorado, so you should know.
Yeah.
You can smoke pot until you fall over, and you still will wake up in the morning. Yeah. But at the time they didn't know much about cannabis in Hong Kong. So that became one of the theories, is that he was this terrible drug addict because he used this hippie drug marijuana. And it became part of his reputation. So then the press started making up stories that, they found cocaine and all these things, but he liked the little hash brownies every once in a while. So he was an edibles kind of guy.
Yeah, he's ahead of his time. What? There was nothing in his past whether he had any cocaine issues or anything like that?
No, the only drugs he seemed to have been allergic to alcohol, so he rarely drank. If he drank a little bit, you may have some Asian friends that have this. This is fairly common in East Asia, an allergy to alcohol. So he was sober almost all the time, and the only drug he seemed to like was hash. Or pot, and so he would toke up every once in a while. Again, it was the 60s and the 70s, so that was the yeah, exactly. It was the cool thing to do in Hollywood at the time. But yeah, so compared to the kind of drugs real Hollywood stars take, he was a Boy Scout. So
without giving away too much of your book, what's something you think about your version of his biography, basically, that Bruce Lee fans should check out and read more about and get that information?
Well, one of the things I think people don't realize is that, and I certainly didn't when I started, was we think of him as this great martial artist who sort of accidentally got into movies, kind of like Chuck Norris. Mm-hmm. But the truth is his dad was an actor, and Bruce Lee started in his first movie when he was 3 months old.
Wow.
And his career really started when he was 6, and he made 20 movies in Hong Kong by the time he was 18, and none of those were kung fu movies. So he was kind of like the Macaulay Culkin of Hong Kong. He did kind of.
I never knew that, man. I've been a Bruce Lee fan for a long time. Never knew that.
Yeah, he was a scrappy orphan who did kind of comedies and melodramas. And so he was really an actor first before he took up the martial arts and fell in love with them. And then he combined those two passions to become this great martial arts actor. But I think that's the reason he's so convincing on film, is because he knew how to act before he became a great martial artist. And most martial artists don't really know how to act. And so you see them on film and their moves are cool, but they're not emotional because they can't convey emotion on film. And so that's why I think Bruce Lee's special, is because he combined two very difficult art forms. It's hard to be a master of martial arts and it's hard to be a really good actor, and he managed to do both.
Yeah. There's not very many people out there. There's just a few that can do both of them.
Yeah, and if you are an action martial arts star, they really reduce your lines and rely heavy on the action scenes.
They do. Well, you take somebody like Keanu Reeves, who was a good actor, a good star, and the first Matrix movie, his martial arts aren't that great, but it's clear that he's continued studying. So by now, when he does the John Wick movies, he's quite good. He's not Bruce Lee, but it's very convincing. But that took him years and years and years to learn how to do, and that's the thing. If you take a good actor, it still takes them years to learn how to do the martial arts. If you take a martial artist, they may never learn how to be a good actor. So
yeah, that's a good point. Who are some of your favorite modern actors that are in martial arts?
Well, I had a period in my teenage years when I was definitely a Jean-Claude Van Damme fan.
Oh, yeah, I was too.
Oh, yeah.
If I watch Bloodsport, I still want to punch somebody. I get so excited. The Kumite
we get
in the background.
The Kumite, yeah. So I thought his early work was quite good. I thought Steven Seagal's early first 4 films were quite good before he became kind of chubby and crazy.
Yeah, definitely.
I think those guys were great. And the movie Ong Bak, Tony Jaa does some really fantastic. He manages to make Thai kickboxing look fantastic on film. So he's one of my favorite. And I have to say a shout out to Jet Li.
Yeah.
I got to interview him once for a magazine interview, and great guy, and just an incredible, the amount of different skills he has. Bruce Lee did 6 or 7 things really amazingly. But Jet Li can do everything.
Yeah, he's really good. He was a high level kung fu competition guy too, right?
Yeah, so he did what they call wushu, which is the gymnastic version. So it's a lot of acrobatics and jumping around and backflips, etc. But you learn dozens of different weapons and how to flip them around. So yeah, he was a master of that as a young kid, and that's how he got into movies.
Now, when you do all these interviews, do you guys speak Chinese when you do the interviews?
Yeah, I did the interview with Jet Li in Chinese.
Wow.
Now my Chinese now has gotten kind of rusty, so it wasn't as good. But he was so happy to have someone interview him in Chinese, because he'd been in America for a while and his English wasn't great. That he wouldn't stop talking, and so I couldn't get a question in edgewise. I'd have to be like, okay, Jet, let me ask you a question.
Wow, that's so impressive. Can you say JP is a fool in Chinese for me?
JP 不懂事.
I've been saying that for years, man.
That's right.
That's good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can barely speak English. The people that are bilingual are so impressive to me. It's such an awesome thing to have. So let's get into Brandon Lee a little bit. Because
sure.
I was a huge, I don't know, you can't see it, but I have a huge
you got the crow? Yeah.
Crow figurine thing that's in here, but it's not on display right now. Yeah, I was a huge Crow fan back in the day. And,
great movie.
Even though the movie was cut short for him being murdered or killed or whatever, how you want to slice it on set, it still turned out to be a great movie. And he had a lot of potential, if not more than his dad. He was very charismatic. It sucked. He only did Rapid Fire and then The Crow. Basically, it was his only big movies.
Yeah, those were the 2 big movies. He did a couple right before that, but those were really tiny movies that no one saw. What was it? Big Trouble in Little Tokyo or something like that, with Dolph Lundgren, which I actually enjoyed that one. I thought they had a good rapport. But yeah, he'd done about 4 movies before, about the same number of kung fu movies as his dad had done before he died.
Fun fact: I did all the stunts for Dolph Lundgren in Rocky IV.
Did you?
Yeah, I've been.
Okay, I can tell.
About like 3 feet shorter. He's a big guy.
He is a big dude. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, what's your thoughts on the Brandon Lee situation? Do you think that live round in the magazine for the stunt gun was on purpose? Do you think it was an accident?
Yeah. Well, for the listeners, let's kind of back up into what exactly happened.
Yeah,
here.
sorry, I forget that I'm a weirdo that knows all this stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Paint the picture.
You want me to go through it?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So Brandon was filming The Crow. He was the lead actor, and he was on the set, and he was doing a scene where one of the bad guys was supposed to shoot him as he walks in the door. And they put what they thought were blanks into the gun, and the guy pulled the trigger, and a bullet shot out and went into Brandon's stomach. And they, no one realized what had happened. They were all shocked. They rushed him to the hospital. They did surgeries, but the damage was too extensive, and he, bled to death essentially from internal damage from the bullet. Mm-hmm. And so the police investigated immediately. Obviously, it took place in North Carolina, where they had been filming it at a kind of independent studio. And the police report, and I haven't found any evidence that suggests the police report is inaccurate, was that they had previously had been testing the gun on a previous scene, and the tip of a bullet had gotten lodged in the barrel. Oh. And then because it was an inexperienced staff, they hadn't cleaned the gun or checked it, and they put it away. And 2 weeks later, they pulled the gun out, and they put blank bullets in it. And a blank is basically the cartridge and the charge, but not the tip. So there's a tip in the barrel, the cartridge and charge, and the blank. So essentially, you've got a bullet separated by, an inch.
Wow.
And so when the guy pulled the trigger, the blank exploded. And if there had been no tip in the barrel, nothing would have happened. But because the tip was stuck in the barrel, the exhaust, the force of that blew the tip out and essentially turned it into a live round. And that's what shot into Brandon and killed him. And so basically the conclusion of the police and sort of all credible reports that I could find was that it was a terrible accident due to negligence, and that nobody had intended to try to kill Brandon Lee. Everybody loved him on set. They were all shocked. The actor who pulled the trigger was devastated. There was no bad blood. He had to take a year off of work because he was so crushed by what had happened. As you can imagine, if you pulled the trigger thinking it was a blank and you killed the main actor in your movie, yeah. Right? So no one could find any motivation, but it's never happened before, and there's been thousands and thousands of guns on set. So it was such a freak accident that it became fodder for conspiracy theories. Like when something so extraordinary happens, and then it happens to the son of a man who died under strange circumstances, then suddenly people start thinking, well, maybe there's a curse on the family, or, maybe the Triads. One theory was Brandon was going to find out who really killed his father. And so the Triads had to kill him. And so they, worked it out so that they got the bullet into the gun or something.
It's like a martial arts JFK situation with JFK Jr. and everything.
It is. It's absolutely similar. Like very similar. And so the same thing, like is the Kennedy family cursed? Or is somebody out to get them? Did they mess with the airplane for JFK Jr.? It's the same way with the Lee family. And in Hong Kong, most people in Hong Kong believe some conspiracy theory. Like you cannot try to explain to them like a kind of rational explanation. They'll be like, no.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that they had that perspective on it.
Yeah, they do.
Wow.
So, I talk to people and they're like, oh, no, the Triads killed him, and then they killed his son. And, most people believe one of the conspiracy theories. So, I don't. don't think those are accurate. But I do understand that people fall into that kind of, QAnon essentially belief structure.
Yeah, I mean, it is super bizarre, and it is kind of, I mean, for those people who know, a lot about guns, it's not easy to get a bullet lodged in a gun without it just exploding. Number one, for number two, for it to actually
and still
work
working
like that.
Yeah.
It is bizarre. It's super bizarre.
And that's the thing too, is what I was studying it, and even I, who am very skeptical, was like, this is creepy. Like, it feels creepy, and so I can see why people would jump to those conclusions. But what they had done previously to get the bullet lodged is they were trying to make blank bullets, and so they had taken live bullets and opened them up and dropped the powder out, and then put them back together, and then they put it into the revolver and they clicked the trigger. But one of the rounds, they hadn't got all the explosive out, and so that one exploded just a little bit, pushing the tip of the bullet into the barrel. So that was the real negligence, is that they had brought live rounds onto a movie set, which you're never supposed to do.
Right.
And then they tried themselves to turn the live rounds into blanks. And that's how they got the tip lodged.
It's a perfect storm for a crazy situation.
You think
it is.
Movies would just buy blanks.
Yeah. Well, it was one of those things where they needed a scene to be filmed.
Yeah.
And it would have taken 2 hours to run to the place to get the right blanks.
Yeah.
And it's North Carolina, right? So somebody's got bullets in his trunk.
Yeah.
They're not filming in LA.
It wasn't very huge for that show either, that movie.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a tight budget, and they were trying to do it too fast, and they cut corners. That's basically what happened, as far as I can tell.
Wow. That's so wild. I had another question about that further back. Let's see.
And I'm kind of bummed out that there's not no craziness to all this. It's actually pretty plausible.
Yeah.
Normal circumstances.
That's what I wanted you to explain to the listeners. A lot of people don't know why the Triad would have been after Bruce Lee and Brandon Lee. Can you paint that narrative, even if it's not real?
So the Triads are like the mafia of Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. And they were very prominent in various sort of, just like the Yakuza in Japan. They were in various businesses. And so they later got really involved in the movie business. Around Bruce's time, they weren't that involved. But people sort of get timelines confused. And later on in Hong Kong, the Triads took over the movie business, and a couple of movies, actually Jet Li's manager, I believe, was executed by the Triads. Wow. I think they tried to sign him on to a sweetheart deal contract, and the manager said no, so they executed the manager.
Damn.
And then Jet Li was like, okay, I'll sign the contract. So
did you want me to
yeah, exactly. So the Triads actually did become a real force in Hong Kong cinema in the 80s. And so people think about that, and then they project them back to the 70s. But in the 70s, they weren't a power. But so the idea was basically the Triads had been trying to sign Bruce Lee, and he told them to screw off, and so they killed him. And then his son was going to find out this truth, and so then they killed him too. That's the theory.
That's crazy. I didn't even know that version of it. My version was much cornier, and I thought what I was under the impression of was that the Triad didn't want him taking Chinese martial art kung fu culture to the West and teaching Americans, and that's why they were out to get him. I didn't know about that whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the shit, it all spins.
Yeah, exactly. No, so that story is also a myth too. That's from Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. Yeah.
Okay.
The idea was when he was teaching in San Francisco, the San Francisco masters were furious at him for teaching white people kung fu.
Yeah.
So that's not what happened. Actually, what happened was he was giving a demonstration in San Francisco, and he got on stage and he said, my style of kung fu is the best, and you San Francisco masters suck. Oh. Basically, my style is better than yours.
Yeah, I love
and so
confidence.
Yeah, he was a cocky guy. And so they got pissed off, and one of the young guys kind of was like, I'll go challenge him. And so it was kind of just like Bruce was 24 and the guy who challenged him was 22. It was, like after a football game, somebody says my team's better than yours and two guys have a fight. It was basically that. But the problem was he'd just gotten married to his wife and she wanted to know why he was getting in this fight. And he told her, "Oh, baby, it's because I'm teaching white people Kung Fu."
Did the fight happen?
Yeah, he did. He did. He
I'm
fought
sure
this
he
guy
won.
named Wong Jack Man, and Bruce won.
Yeah.
And so then afterwards, like, those guys didn't like each other. And so in San Francisco to this day, you can meet old Chinese Kung Fu instructors who are like, "Oh, Bruce Lee, thumbs down," because they still resent that he was this cocky guy who insulted their styles.
I mean, if you got it though, you got it. It's like, I mean, if what are you gonna beat him up, right? He's gonna murder you.
That's right.
Out of you.
That's right. No, Bruce Lee was the real deal. He was a really good fighter, and he was a tough guy, and he was sort of the opposite of the stereotype of the submissive, head bowed Asian male. And so I think that was part of his charisma too, is that he was like, kind of the cock of the walk type.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, he definitely had a different energy and aura about him than the typical martial arts master coming out of the
That's
East.
right.
He wasn't a very big guy, was he?
No, he was really small. Wasn't he like 5'5" at best?
No, he was 5'7",
5'7"?
but he was like, 5'7" and like 130 pounds soaking wet. So he was
UFC flyweight.
Yeah.
he was like Conor McGregor, basically.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
I wouldn't fight him either.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's right. But they have a similar vibe.
Yeah, Conor has like a reincarnated Bruce Lee spirit, man. He's super arrogant, but he's got that build that's just so wiry and explosive. It's impressive. He has a lot of Bruce Lee's aura about him. You can tell he definitely
does.
Idolized him. So do you follow MMA?
I do, actually. The second book I wrote was about MMA. I spent 2 years studying MMA down at the Randy Couture's camp.
Oh, wow. That's my absolute. I have a massive man crush on Randy Couture, man.
He cornered me for my one MMA fight. So
wow, dude, that is so awesome.
Yeah, I used to spar with his son Ryan Couture.
Yeah.
When Ryan was just starting, he's like a flyweight, and I'm like 6'3", and he would just kick the shit out of me. So, so I got
Randy,
to get.
Randy
You got Randy. There you are.
Dave Daly made this.
Yeah.
Manley, I'm sorry, got his name mixed up with our last guest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I knew Randy pretty well and his son really well, and trained out at Couture's, and then did some training in New York and other places. So yeah, the last couple of years I haven't followed MMA as closely as I did back then, but I know a lot about it.
Man, that's so awesome.
That is cool.
So yeah, I'm gonna start writing my book about you, man. I don't know where to start. We'll have to go more in depth on childhood.
All right, let's get started.
So, what was childhood like, man? What were the bullies' names, and what did they look like?
No, you gotta forgive them at a certain point. But yeah, it was funny. After I got back from the Shaolin Temple, one of the bullies kind of emailed me out of the blue and was like, "Hey, man, I hear you're doing real well."
Hey, man, we cool, right?
Yeah, we cool, right? Everything's okay.
You're not gonna stick a tiger on me, huh?
Exactly. So yeah, but definitely, I think that's kind of a classic archetype in the martial arts. The little scrawny kid who gets picked on and takes up the martial arts to kind of learn how to be tough.
Yeah, it makes some of the greatest people. I've been training JiuJitsu on and off, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, since 2013, and I've had several different coaches, and every one of them, except one who's just a freak prodigy athlete. All of them were skinny guys that were abused, beat up on, had a rough start in life, and then turned it around and got into martial arts. And now their main goal is just to teach kids and people that are less gifted with physicalness to learn how to defend themselves. And they all have that same passion. They're all great guys. It's such an awesome martial arts brings out some of the best people. That's why I love it so much. There's so many solid people in it.
Yeah, I agree. That's exactly my experience. And I did some training in New York with Enzo Gracie,
Oh
and
man, dude, another awesome guy.
Yeah,
Dude, I can't wait to read
his,
this book.
yeah, and his
Enzo Gracie's
his
a freaking awesome dude.
he's great, and
Yeah.
his no-gi coach John Danaher.
Yeah, another wizard.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I would. I remember working with Danaher, and at the very first, I'm like, yeah, eventually I'm going to be able to, tap him out. And then it's like after 6 months, I'm like, I'd just like to go one round and not get tapped out 10 times.
Yeah, I can't imagine rolling with Danaher. Oh my god, that guy's a savant for sure. He's so good with jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Like he's on some other level. So it was a real honor to get to spend some time with him. But I agree with you. I think the best part of the martial arts is like giving young kids kind of confidence to stand on their own. Because the truth of the matter is, once you get past a certain age, you don't get in that many fights. Right. But having that kind of confidence, if something happens, you can get out of a lot of fights that way. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the best thing about martial arts, and one of the reasons why these heroes like Bruce Lee live on.
Yeah, definitely, man. That's so cool. Anybody who doesn't know Enzo Gracie or John Danaher, you should definitely look them up. They're very entertaining. Enzo Gracie probably has the best stories, life experiences out of anybody in jiu-jitsu. The guy's a very unique individual and very funny. And John Danaher is a guy that wears a rash guard, which is what you train in no-gi. He wears a rash guard basically every day of his life. It's hilarious. Like, you can't ever find John Danaher without a rash guard on. He's an incredible mind.
Yeah, there's a story. He went to a wedding once.
Yeah,
with the rash guard on. And, they went rolling out during the thing. Yeah,
it's incredible. Yeah, he is. If Jedis were real, he would definitely be a Jedi.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, man, you've met some cool people. We're gonna get this book done, and I'll give you all the credit, man. It's your story, but
all right, excellent, you Willie.
So, what all martial arts did you train? Have you trained?
Well, I did. I started in college with Taekwondo and did that for a little bit, and then I tried Aikido, which is a lovely art, but I didn't seem very effective to me. And then I did Kung Fu, Southern Kung Fu, and then I did Shaolin, of course, and Chinese kickboxing. And then I stopped for a while, and then when I did the MMA book, of course, I took up Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, and boxing to learn the basics of MMA. I even did a little Sambo there for a while, the Russian martial art that's based on judo.
Yeah, that's one of my personal favorites. I love Sambo. I've never been able to train it, but man, that creates some monsters. Anybody I know that's been in Sambo is not some guys you want to mess with.
I know. I actually got to interview Fedor Emelianenko.
Wow.
Yeah. I went to St. Petersburg in Moscow and saw him at a tournament. And so it was kind of trippy to see him in his own environment. He's actually not that big a guy.
That's what I've heard, but he's a monster.
Yeah, he hits like a freight train.
Yeah, so strong.
Because he throws his whole body into it. But when you stand next to him, you kind of think he's like, he could be the guy. Yeah, you do. You got this little fan. You're like this, and one, you gotta throw one arm, and he like knocks you through the wall.
He's such a somber guy too, man. He's so misleading with his look, his build, and the way he carries himself. You would never know that guy's an assassin.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Was there a language barrier with that? Was it a hard conversation?
No, I actually hired a translator to go with me because Russian I definitely don't speak. So yeah, I had a translator, and the funny thing, it was a female translator with this kind of ditzy blonde hair, and the interview, because it was after one of his sparring matches, was in the men's locker room, and so I had to bring her into this Russian, fighters locker room where they're all in their skivvies, and she was freaking out, and I was trying to get her to calm down and do the translation. So it was a little tense, but one of those moments you never forget.
That's funny. I can't imagine. She's freaking out, thinking she's surrounded by caged animals, I'm sure.
Yeah,
basically. Wow. Man, so what state are you, if you don't mind me asking?
No.
Are you in Oregon?
No, I live in Connecticut.
Connecticut. Oh, you're on the other side. Yeah, you're on the East Coast. What am I thinking?
Not even close.
Yeah. For some reason I was thinking you're on the Pacific, but yeah, I forgot you're on the East Coast.
Yeah.
When you were training with Randy, was it in Oregon or was it the Extreme Couture?
No, I started off. I would go down to New York City and study with Enzo, and then when I got time to try to get a fight camp going, I moved to Vegas, and started training at Couture's, and one of the coaches there by the name of Joey Varner kind of took me under his wing, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do like an 8-week camp and then have a amateur fight. And after the second day of practice, he's like, I can't let you fight in 8 weeks. He goes, that would be like, malpractice. So he said, you're going to need, yeah, exactly. He goes, you're going to get slaughtered. You're in terrible shape. You can't move. So he said, give me 6 months and I'll get you ready for an amateur fight. So I had to call up I just got married and I called up my wife and said, I'm going to be another 6 months in Vegas, baby.
That's awesome.
So that was a long call. Yeah. So I spent about 6 months there going to training every day and, watching the pros who were, I was at best a very mediocre amateur, but getting to watch the pros at Randy Couture, move around and,
he's got
what that kind of level is.
Great athletes that come out of that gym, man. There's been so many people that have trained there that are just incredible.
Yep, exactly.
I'm sure you got to see a lot of good people. My old instructor, Crazy Tim Crater. I don't know if he was there at that time, but he was out there at some point too during Forrest Griffin's run.
Oh yeah,
Forrest Griffin.
I might have seen him. The name doesn't ring a bell, but I was there when Forrest was in and out of the gym.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
I get to see him around. Yeah.
Cool, man. I could talk MMA with you all day, man.
Yeah, all day.
That's right. We got to come up with a new conspiracy theory.
Who was that dude we were talking about earlier? Bruce Lee or something? Who's that guy?
Bruce Lee.
Who was that guy?
Chan, I don't know. All right. Well, we're going to jump into the 6 questions. You ready for that, sir?
Yeah, let's hit it.
All right. Number 1, if you could have the power to create one law, which law would you create?
So this is really nerdy, but I want to pass the balanced budget amendment because I'm a deficit hawk.
Can you break that down for two dummies?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the balanced budget amendment is the idea that the government can't spend more than it takes in. It can't run debts or deficits.
I like that. I don't even know about that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Wow, I hope they have a bankruptcy clause or something because we're what
trillions
in the hole.
We've gone so far in the hole we're never going to see light again. But yeah.
Yeah, it feels like each president is selling the country basically as a company to rent out to other countries, get us deeper in debt. But that's a story for another time.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good law to have, though.
Yeah, I like that one.
I am curious to know how much gold we actually have to back how much money we actually have. I know it's not there, but I'm just curious. Give me a real number,
We're gonna do a live episode at Fort Knox next week.
Yeah, that's right. They're gonna let you in.
Shoot us.
That's right.
Number 2, what 3 words would you choose to describe yourself?
Well, I'd like to think that I was funny, thoughtful, and loyal.
Good, solid. I
That's
like
good.
them.
Yeah.
Number 3, what do you want to be remembered for?
I hope people remember me for the Bruce Lee bio. I think that's the best book I've written, and I hope that lasts. Every time you write a book, you don't want it to disappear. So I hope in the future when people are trying to find out who Bruce Lee was, they pick up the bio and they go, "Who was that Matt Polly guy?" So
yeah. Well, like you said, there's not a lot of them out there, so you pick the right one to write about.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Then they pick up the Matthew Polly. They're like, "Oh man, who's this guy?"
He's got an interesting story himself.
Yeah.
Hey, how many books have you written total?
3. I wrote a book. The first book about the Shaolin Temple, and the second book about MMA, and then the third book was Bruce Lee.
Perfect. Wow, that's awesome. Number 4, what is something you like that most people don't know about you?
Something that most people don't know about me is that I'm scared of heights.
Really?
Yeah. I was trying to think of something people don't know. Yeah, anytime I get near like the edge of a cliff or something, my legs start shaking and I get queasy. And I realize I'm not scared of heights so much. I'm scared I'm going to jump.
Oh. Whoa, that's heavy, man.
Yeah.
You just threw a bomb at us.
That's right.
You have like an internal suicide bomb inside of you?
I do. I think I've got something that wants to jump off a cliff. And so anytime I get near that little part of me is like, let's jump. And then the other part's like, oh, fuck. So
don't do that.
Wow.
Don't jump.
What about like conquering that and go and do like base jumping? Would you try that?
I'm genuinely terrified of all of those, like bungee jumping, base jumping, the kites thing that you fly off of, all parachuting, all of that. Just like it scares
no
the
way
shit
you
out
can
of
do
me.
it because I'm trying to get JP to go skydive with me this year, and we'll bring you too.
I'll jump. I'll do some cliff jumps into the water, but that's
cliff jumps.
That's when we're talking.
Let's
like
do a skydive trip this year. We already talked
about
it.
I can barely get off the high dive, so I'm not doing any skydiving.
You gotta let that inner jump out.
I'm trying to get JP to do the skydiving with me, man. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do it. I might have to drug him and then push him out the plane.
That's right, like Mr. T and the A-Team.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even have to drug me. I'll just pass out. I know I'll pass out right as soon as we go. I'll be like, I'm out.
Once you go out of the plane or once you're in the plane?
Probably both. As soon as the door's open, I'll just be limp.
I want to do it so bad this year. We're right next to the Rocky Mountains. I can't think of a better place besides like a beach to do it. It would be so beautiful.
Yeah.
Make a great episode, JP. Do it for the fans. Do it for the listeners.
Nope. I don't like you guys that much.
Oh, you heard him. We're going to put a poll on the Patreon soon.
I love the fans, but I'm not jumping.
For him to jump or not. And we're going to, if they say you have to jump, you have to do it, man. You have to do it for the listeners.
There you go.
Absolutely.
And we're going to bring Matthew in. He's going to jump with us.
That's right. I'm going to jump without a parachute. So, yeah.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Jump.
That's right.
What other crazy fears do you have? I love people conquering their fears.
That's the one crazy fear I have that's really genuinely like physically affects me.
It goes back from like childhood too, like as far as you can remember.
No, something triggered it, but I don't know what did. It was like something in my teens or 20s where I get near a cliff, or even if I see someone walk near a cliff, then that makes me terrified too. Yeah. So
wow, you get antsy and nervous.
Yeah,
you see those videos of people like walking on the edge of buildings and stuff like that, and I'm like, my hands are sweating now just thinking about it.
There's some crazy people out there that do that. That's so impressive that they can pull that crap off.
Yeah,
riding
same
bikes
thing.
On an edge of a building and all the stuff that they do, handstands.
Yeah.
Fearless.
Yeah. There was the guy, I think he did one between the World Trade Center and walked the wire between them. Anyway.
They made a movie about that, and people were walking out because they can't watch. They like, I can't do this. I gotta go. I can't watch this.
Yeah. It's like a horror movie.
Yeah. It's a real fear. I had a really bad fear of spiders growing up when I was a kid, and I had serious arachnophobia. And I can't stand having stuff. I'm a huge animal lover. I didn't want to have one animal that gave me a huge crutch like that. So when I was about 19 or so, I bought a tarantula and tried to become friends with it, and I've eventually got it to crawl on me. And I can hold a tarantula now. I can hold basic spiders. It doesn't bother me as bad, but yeah, I still have that little bit in me where it's that little bitch E-Willie's like wants to come out, and it's like, But yeah, that's my biggest fear probably that I conquered. I can't think of another one that I have that I haven't conquered yet. But since I had kids, man, I became afraid of heights. Like I get nervous as hell when I'm with my kids and we're anywhere around heights. If we go out into the Rocky Mountains, Estes Park, and looking at stuff, I get like almost lightheaded thinking about them walking by the railings and stuff. And be nervous about heights, which I never had that problem before.
That's funny. Yeah, I have the same way for both things. And yeah, I think there's being a parent, you get various weird fears. Like every time my son does a headstand, I'm like, don't do that. You could snap your neck. Like, your neck is fragile. Don't do a headstand. And he keeps looking at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah, I'm the exact same thing. My youngest, the one whose birthday is today, is obsessed with doing headstands and handstands and all this kind of stuff. And she's really good at it. She's got a very strong back. I call her a little Ninja Turtle back. She's going to be a good jiu-jitsu player. But I've told that kid so many times, don't forget, tuck your chin so you don't roll on your neck.
That's right.
Like a paranoid person. But yeah, I definitely acquired a lot of fears as a father. Number 5, if you could have any superpower, which would you choose?
I would choose omniscience.
What the hell is that?
Omniscience is that's right. It's like God is omniscient. He knows everything.
Like Dr.
So,
Manhattan?
Yeah, exactly.
Dr. Manhattan.
So okay. The ability to know the past, the present, the future, the answer to everything. Wow. That's the power I would choose.
Say the word again one more time. I don't even know that word.
Omniscient.
Omniscient.
We're such idiots, bro. We don't know words.
That's all right.
First time we're going to start a new thing on this show where we learn a new big word and we have to work it into the episode somehow, but it has to flow. It can't be like we're cheating and use it. So next episode, we're going to work that word into it. We're going to kick it off with episode 71. And that's the word we got to try to make it flow in.
Omniscient. That's right.
Omniscient. All right. I'm going to write that down. Thank you, Matthew. We're going to learn words this year.
There you are. So yeah, no, I figure, you can be super strong or super fast or super lucky, but if you don't know the problem in all these superhero movies is they don't know what's going to happen in the future, so they can't figure out what they're doing and they make mistakes. So if you had that skill, then you wouldn't need all the other ones.
Yeah, very smart. Very smart. I like it. The power of the brain. Number 6, last question. If you could know the absolute truth on one conspiracy theory, which would you choose and why?
This is a common one, but I'm still kind of obsessed by the Kennedy assassination. Mm-hmm. That's one of the very few. For sure. Yeah, because that's one of the very few ones where I'm like, I think the conspiracy theories might be right on this one. Oh, yeah. Most of them I'm like, it's bullshit. That's bullshit. And basically, it's the fact that Jack Ruby was allowed to get close to shoot Lee Harvey Oswald. That's the moment where I'm like, this stopped being like your typical kind of explainable event and shifted to that looks like a plot to me.
Yeah, definitely.
So Jack Ruby coming around shooting that guy, that to me was that's like, oh, somebody planned this. This whole thing was planned. This wasn't just an accident.
Yeah, we've heard that one be brought up quite often, but not that part of it. That's an interesting part that people need to highlight for sure. That's yeah, that whole situation just doesn't add up. I personally, I'm still holding hope that JFK Jr.'s plane went down on purpose and he's Batman. So I'm gonna leave it at
that. That would be pretty cool.
I'm Batman. I just want him to come down on a cape right into DC. I'm back.
That's right.
I never died.
That's right. All right. He's good look. He would actually be a great Batman because he's good looking enough, and he's like rich.
Yeah, he's rich. He's got the look. He's got the hair. He's Batman. He's the same height, 6'1", I think, too. It's like perfect.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Batman nerd, by the way. So.
Me too. Yeah.
That's there you go. You're an awesome guy. Can't wait to write the book. Matthew, thank you so much for coming on our show. Where can we find your books? What can we do to support you, follow you, all that good jazz?
Oh, well, thank you. You can go to my website, www.mattpolley.com, MATTPOLLY.com. And I'm also on Twitter at Matthew E. Polley at Twitter. So I post pretty frequently and respond to, people reach out. I'd love to hear from fans. And you can get any one of my books from Amazon or Barnes & Noble or any of your local booksellers.
Awesome. Yeah, we're going to get them and we're going to add them to our guest book shelf up there. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, you've got a lot more books than we do.
Yeah. It was very easy to get a hold of you. I was surprised how fast you got back to me. I appreciate that too. And then coming on so soon, it was awesome. Mm-hmm. I wasn't expecting this episode to materialize so quickly. It's really awesome. So thank you very much for joining us on our silly podcast and getting us some good information on the Lee family and the real situations that actually happened.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you having me on.
All right. Have a good one.
Peace.
Wolf pack.